Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We have an amazing guest, casting director extraordinaire. Please welcome Christy Dooley. Hop on, Christy.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Sure.
It is so appreciative because this is a give back to all young and actors of all ages. So I don't know. Let's just get right down to it. You have been casting The Bold and the Beautiful for many, many years. Since 1987?
Yeah. I mean, I took over, the show's been on since 87. I took over at the end of 87, beginning of 88.
This is amazing. You obviously love what you do.
I do.
How did it come about? Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, I have a background in theater and directing, was an actor, went to school for that. And then I moved up to Northern California after school. I went to school in San Diego, moved up to Northern California where I worked in advertising. And then I moved back to LA and just wanted to get back into the industry. So I was involved a lot with theater. I directed a lot of theater. And then, I don't know, it's just, it's all about timing and being at the right place. I was working with some people at a production company, and then I was working for a producer. And then one of the women I was working with, we still got together and had dinners and stuff. And she talked about this new show she was working on. It was in pre-production. And she said, come and interview. So I'm like, okay. I've always, liked daytime. And so I did. And the person I trained under was amazing. He'd been in this business for years and years and years, John Conwell.
Oh, okay.
And then he retired I started in February, he retired in December, and I took over.
That is like such a blessing.
It really was. I mean, I think it's where my soul was meant to be.
Yes. Yeah. So do you miss acting, or do you feel like it has helped you into the role?
No, I think that my background with acting and directing has helped me do what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. And I don't miss it because I still feel that my job is creative and I have other outlets for creativity in my life. So no, I don't miss that.
No, I'm the same way. I understand. Yeah. I used to be an actress. Yeah. I don't miss it one bit. I feel like I act every day when you are acting every day,
exactly.
When you're reading actors.
And I didn't like the unsteadiness. I don't have the right personality for the unsteadiness of being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't.
So if you could describe to the actors that are listening, is there any difference not that you're casting films, but when people come in or they come in to coach or they ask questions about soap operas, is there a special key thing to know about when you're auditioning for soap operas, or is it just the same? You're telling it.
I tell, and it's, over the years, I think it has changed a little bit daytime, but I always tell my students that, acting is acting. It's based from truth. You're not changing it because it's soap opera. It's not the melodrama and all of that people think of. But there are technical things, I think, that apply to daytime. Well, first of all, there's repetition because it's on every day.
Yes.
So you always find that new life. And also, just there's holds in daytime. I think that there aren't in other mediums. At the end of a scene, you'll hold because it's going to go out to a commercial and come back and pick up. And so there's those kinds of technical things. There's lots of close-ups that are different. And I think the biggest thing about daytime is how quickly we move. I mean, we move so fast. We shoot anywhere from 85 to 100 pages a day. So compared to episodic, doing an episode every 7 to 10 days and film doing 3 pages a day, it's a very, very talkative medium. There's not a lot of action. It's mostly.
Oh, I don't even know how half the actors do it because there's 50 pages a day that you can maybe possibly have to learn. But my question before we go further is, so you were talking about the pauses, and it's kind of when you read the scripts, you can see it. It's like a pause. So when actors audition for you, do you want to see those little beats and take that pause?
Absolutely.
And then come back?
I want to see what they're doing with it. I mean, you can't just take a pause. There's got to be a reason for it, and you got to fill it with something. So if the writers wrote that in, there's a reason for it. And so you as an actor, you have to find that reason. Otherwise, you're not fulfilling what you're being asked to do.
No, totally. But you know what I'm talking about this.
But it's different. It's different if you're looking at contract players versus day players. Contract players, they're living the skin of that character every day. And after a while, they'll find their own rhythm. And, and it's different writers. But if you're writing for a day player, then they're writing a day player because they need something specific from you for that specific episode. So you can't ignore the things that the writer writing in because the writer knows more about your character than you.
Mm-hmm. So when an actor comes in or goes out, but right now, because it's COVID, so I'm assuming you're seeing a lot of actors on tape, yes?
I've done everything via Zoom. Yeah.
Yes. So when that happens, do you like, and these I'm talking about little pet peeves, do you like actors just to be straight on with you and have you as the person they're talking to and maybe have someone, a piece of environment that they're looking at? Do you like behavior? What is your thing? Because different people respond to different things.
Yeah. I read with all the actors myself, and I do like them to use me in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
If there's more than one character in the scene, then my assistant will read also, my associate. And we'll both read, and we'll split it up. If there's multiple characters, I'll read the men, she'll read the women, or whatever will make sense. We'll make sense of it in the scene so that we are reading the characters with the actor. I mean, that's when we used to do it in the office. We haven't had to really deal with that since COVID because everything we've done has been pretty much it's been one-on-one. So we haven't had to both read.
And what if an actor is putting themselves on tape and there's a couple characters? How do you feel about using the other person?
I think, again, they have to play it to the actor. And my general rule of thumb, if you're reading with multiple characters in a scene, is if the characters you are reading with are giving you the same information, so their attitude is the same, whether it's positive or negative, then I say play them as one character. But if they're giving you different things, if this character is mad at you and this character is happy with you, you can't play them as one person or you're going to look schizophrenic. So then you do have to kind of place them a little bit differently. And I always say, just put the other person just slightly off. Don't make a big deal about where you place them, just enough with your eye contact so that we can see that you're dealing with, that it's a separate person in the scene.
So keep it simple yet specific. What about behavior? What about if there's drinking, if you're in a bar?
Yeah, I know that's a question that comes up a lot. And I know there's a lot of controversy, not controversy, but a lot of different opinions.
Yes, that's what I'm asking yours.
What they like. Yeah. I'm fine with, let's see. I'm fine with props if it's simple. I mean, you don't want that to take over the scene. I'm big on moments before. So if there's some simple thing you can do in a moment before, whether it's a turn and step into the scene, or if it does involve a prop or something, that's fine. The thing you have to be aware of with props and miming is if you're holding a script, where does it go when you turn a page? And that is a pet peeve of mine. When a prop disappears or mime disappears, then you've lost me completely.
Right.
So if you don't need it, don't use it. If it's something you can easily get rid of, do that. Like I had somebody reading for a bartender once, and he started the scene with his back. This was in office, and he started the scene with his back to me, and he was like drying his hands, and he turned around and faced me. He took the bar towel he had in his hand, threw it over his shoulder, started the scene, and we immediately knew where his environment was, who he was. So it was a great way of him setting up the environment and the scene for himself, but it never got in his way. And I love that kind of stuff. I love the fact, and you're immediately engaged in watching him. And that's what I mean about having that moment before. It's just if somebody's standing there waiting for their line, there's no life going on. I'm big about that jumping off place. Now, obviously, and you can, with the self-tape, you can still incorporate that. It's hard. I know it's really hard now with COVID, with people doing self-tapes because they're not always quarantined with somebody who can read with them. So, then it's either you're reading with a roommate who can act and it can be very distracting, or you're reading with somebody on the phone and it can be hard. I mean, so you just,
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the sound of someone's voice. And what's interesting, because we just paused our podcast because we were hearing echoes, because you never know what is picking up on different computer mics. Sometimes it sounds really clear. And sometimes, my voice can sound super loud and I have to adjust. So
right.
I think
or it's not like you're in a cave or it's tinny
So and you were just talking about, sometimes actors are in a place where they don't have an actor who is trained to read with them. So what is worse, to sound tinny over the phone on your audition, but be a connected actor, or to have someone in the room with you who's not a great actor?
Wait,
you know what I mean?
The first choice was to read with me?
No, I'm talking about Zoom. I'm talking about when people are making tapes for you. They're making a tape. And so they have two options. Someone who's in the house with them who's not an actor.
Right.
To read.
When they're doing a self-tape you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, self-tape. And that's distracting. Or to have the tinniness of someone over the phone that knows how to do what they're doing.
Right. You know what? I would prefer the person over the phone.
Yes.
Because I can, if they're in the realm of the ballpark of the character in the scene, I can tune them out. But if they're just really so awful because they just, not no fault of their own, but they just don't know, and it shows that it's not as easy as people think. That becomes more distracting. So I'd rather the other person just becomes something in the background that's not distracting. So if their voice is tinny and it's on the phone, it doesn't bother me.
And I knew you were going to say that, but I just want to ask that just for people that are tuning in to listen, because they really do want the advice. They want to know you a little bit. So when they're extra prepared for coming in for you,
Right.
So when you decide that someone's getting a call back from Zoom, so what does it look like? And are they put in the waiting room for the callback? And then,
I haven't done day player roles on Zoom yet because I have been lucky enough since COVID has been a great day player, and there hasn't been as many because we're trying to keep our footprint so small right now in the stage by not bringing in new bodies. That everybody I've hired has been somebody I've read in the past and it's been a direct offer. So I haven't had to, because I keep track of everybody I read, and that's why I tell actors too. It's like, you go into a callback for a role. I'm talking day player roles now, and let's say I bring 3 people into a callback for producers. I'm not going to bring 3 people that are exactly the same, because what would be the point? I would just hire them myself. It's, but it's to bring them choices to show them that it can be played 3 different ways. So if you're one of those 3 actors and you don't get the role, you have to realize it has nothing to do with your ability, because you're hireable or you wouldn't have made it to the callback. But I brought in 3 different types, which I like to say, like an apple, a banana, and an orange. And if I hire the orange, you're an apple. You can't be an orange. So let it go. It means it just wasn't your day. But what happened for me many times is that we'll remember those other 2 actors that didn't get hired. And down the road, we'll go, remember that actor? He wasn't right for the lawyer, but boy, he'd be really good for this doctor or whatever the role is. So I've hired people off of previous, callback sessions. So that's why I tell actors, just let it go. Your day will come, unless you really screw up your callback for some reason. But, most likely you didn't. So, but for contract roles, which I have had to deal with over COVID, I put 3 new people under contract since COVID started. And so that was a real challenge, just because I've never done that before. And so it was a completely different process. And I have to say, when all is said and done, I enjoyed it a lot. I found it a very valuable process. I was able to see a lot more people in a shorter period of time than I can when I have to bring people in my office. And for these 3 roles, I saw people all across the United States, because it's Zoom, and you can read, and a lot of people actually were quarantining in different places anyway. But so, it was a little bit of a different process, because I would put out a breakdown, and from the breakdown, I think we chose like 200 people to just do a really short self-tape of a scene. I would send them out a 1-page scene, and then I was able to just quickly go through those self-tapes, because half the time people aren't right. You can tell right away.
I just have to interject right now, because you said such a glorious thing, because for a pre-read to only send 1 scene is such a nice thing to do, because you don't need to see more than that to know if the person.
I just need to get a feel, because I'm going to see them with a longer scene anyway. And then once I did that, then I was able to choose the people I wanted to see on Zoom. And then I read with them on Zoom. And then from there, I narrowed it down. I would narrow it down to like the top maybe 10 people I liked, and I would send those to our executive producer and say, which people now do you want me to do a chemistry read, if you can call it that, with one of our contract players. And we're like, well, how are we going to do it? Because first we're like, well, do we have them come to the studio and we do it outside? And I'm like, you're not going to see chemistry that way. So what we ended up doing was doing a Zoom reading where you can see them side by side.
Yes.
And they can see each other, and then Rachel and I would just pull ourselves out of the audition, take off our video and all that, and watch the scene. And then I could direct them. And then at the end of the scene, I'd say, okay, now just you guys talk, and just let them talk to each other and see what kind of chemistry there was. And I thought, it was great. It worked out really well.
It really, so much silver lining to this that people don't even realize. You don't have to have the traffic in a car, of the stress of that, of getting ready and being late. But my question is, and communication is really clear in your Zoom box. Feelings resonate. They just resonate through anywhere, in person and not in person. So everyone on Zoom right now has their own television box that they're in. So guys out there, enjoy it.
Yeah. The only thing, and I like the fact that I can see people close up as opposed to across the room in my office. The only thing is I really like to watch an actor work from head to toe.
Yeah.
And so because we move so fast, and when I bring an actor in my office, I want to make sure that they're comfortable in their space and that they can think and walk and talk, because we're moving fast and directors are spending their time with the contract players, and I need to know that this person can think for themselves. Don't get that quite so much with Zoom.
How do you know that about an actor? What makes you go, he or she, they can be on
I can tell from their energy in the room. And that's the one thing I do miss about Zoom, and especially like teaching class over Zoom, is that I miss the energy in the room. I can't, you can't quite feed off of it the same way. And so I can't watch their body movement and how they move. And because I like people to use their space. I always have actors stand in my office. I don't like people sitting down. Because like I said, I want to see them work from head to toe. So that's how I can tell.
So what is it about the looseness in their body, that they're not carrying any tension if they flub up a line?
And just how comfortable they are. And sometimes it's not even about moving. It's how comfortable you standing still.
Yeah.
Because there's that too. So it just allows me to see all that when they're in the room that you can't see over Zoom.
It boils down to confidence every time, doesn't it?
Well, that's true. And experience and all that. Yeah.
Yes. So when an actor comes in for you and the role has been written a certain way, do you respond to actors that go, I see it totally different. I'm going to think outside the box. I'm going to bring all I got and change your mind?
Well, I try not to go against the writers completely. I mean, if they've written a certain way, it's because they want it a certain way.
True.
And
True. But you know what I'm saying.
The limitations of being a casting director, because you're only as good as your producer's taste, right? Or your writer's taste, which is why, you do your own projects, that kind of stuff. And I'll go, I've read actors before where I'll go, oh my God, I love this actor. They're not going to like him at all.
Oh,
keep him aside, put him aside and think of him for something else, but he's not right for this show, But on the other hand, again, like I said earlier, if I'm doing callbacks, I don't want to bring in 3 people who are doing it exactly the same. I want to go, wow, that was really interesting. I'm not sure that's a choice they're going to go with, but I like it. So I'm going to bring that choice in and show it to them. And years ago, many years ago, when Bill Bell was still running our show, we were looking for this character on the show of a photographer. And he was a little bit edgy, but he was definitely a leading man. So I read all these leading men. And then this one actor came in, I will never forget him. And he was just charactery and edgy and so interesting. I just thought, I have to bring him to a callback. He's going to be like nobody else that comes in the room. And I remember they were sitting out in the reception area, the 4 of them or however many it was. And Bill Bell walked through the reception area and he came into the audition room and he goes, why is that guy sitting out there?
Wow.
And I thought, now I just didn't really respond. So the guys came in and read and he got the role. And Bill was like, oh my God. He goes, I have to rewrite this now a different way. He goes, but this guy's amazing. And he ended up being on the show for a few years.
See, that's
you don't know, but I just, that's thinking outside the box. But I gave them other choices too, if they wanted to stay inside the box. But sometimes it'll be like, no, I really want this guy to be more leading man, but we have to remember this guy for something.
Which is wonderful. And obviously your teamwork with your producers.
Right. And also sometimes that inspires them to go, hey, maybe we'll do this,
Yeah.
So, and I think that's one of the nice things about Daytime, because I work right here in the studio. Mm-hmm. I mean, my executive producers across the hall, I get to watch the actors work. It's a very collaborative. I'm not just, I'm part of the production team. It's not just casting. I do a lot of other stuff too, which is nice. I think that's why I've stayed so long.
Well, absolutely. 100%. And you have such actors, actors talk about all the casting people that are circled in their life, and people really like you.
Oh,
they really like nice. You. And I think that they feel that you're, supportive.
Well, yeah. And that's what I try and tell actors too, is don't, you go into an audition, don't give your power away. Make my job hard. Make me go, I don't know who to hire because they're all so good. Yeah. The hardest thing, or the least favorite thing I would say, is for me to end a casting session and go, I got to see more people. There's just nobody's getting it. Nobody's, and it's not even hard when people don't get it. Because when people don't get it, I can start directing and explain, getting them to get it. Mm-hmm. But when there's just nobody coming in who's just not right, or the look's not right, and I think that's one of the most frustrating things especially when you start getting into contract roles, because it's like, if I could take this person's look and this person's ability and this person, you just want to become, Dr. Frankenstein.
And do you, as a casting director, do you open yourself up to seeing as many people as possible, or do you have your group?
I try, but there's only a certain amount of hours in a day. There's only a
Yes.
certain amount of time I have, to set people up. But I try to, be fair and read as many people as I can. Yeah.
So silver lining for COVID, you are actually getting a chance to see some more actors.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Which is wonderful, because then actors out there who are listening to this, if you get an opportunity, do so good. So when we come back to coming in, you will remember them.
And I don't know if actors will ever come back in the office. I don't see it changing. I'd rather do it this way. I'd rather do the Zoom reading. Oh, absolutely. Because like I said, I can see a lot more people. And maybe then I just really narrow it down and only bring in a few people.
For the callback.
The actual office. Yeah. For the callback for myself, or the callback for producers. Yeah.
See, in my opinion, I think that I love the fact of Zoom, and it's an incredible thing. But I think when you get down to the wire, just as you said, like to see them in their body and to see them together, just that extra security.
Yeah.
To be in person. But, we all crave being in person. I miss, hugging my actors when they walk in. And I'm sure you miss, that energy when someone walks into your room. And
I just miss having anybody here. My assistant has not been in the office in almost a year.
Yes.
She hasn't come in since this. I still come into the office. They would prefer us working at home, but I need the office. I need the energy.
Good. I'm in
my happy place.
Yes.
If there's no distractions. I do it at home, and the dogs are barking, and the internet's, I'm on a hill. The internet's. It's just, I much prefer this environment to do my work in. So I still come in 3 times a week about.
I understand. I'm at my studio all the time, and everyone on Zoom. Although we do some one-on-one tapings here because it's 15 feet, but it's, it's a lot because you're wearing 2 masks and a shield. It's a lot. But so how else have you sustained being in this COVID land? And
we've been really lucky here because, we were the first show back. And we have followed everything to the letter. And because of that, we've been very successful. We don't break any rules. Not that people are breaking rules, but I mean, our executive producer's wife is the film commissioner of California. And so we had to follow rules very carefully coming back. Because, she works with the governor and all that. And so we made sure everything was set in place before we came back into the studio. The studio was redesigned in certain ways and all kinds of things. And we have zones, and, I am not allowed to go on the set anymore. They don't want me near the, because they only have certain people that are allowed to go near the actors. Just again, the fewer the people you have, or, is better. So we've, like I said, have been very, very successful that we have been able to stay open. Even now with California, when it was doing so poorly there, we've still been lucky enough to stay open, knock on wood,
Yes, knock on wood, absolutely. But if you do the right precautions, it's all possible.
Yeah, and just and getting the actors, and the actors know they want to work. I mean, we were, everybody was down for a few months, and it was like everybody wanted to get back to work. So it's like, then you got to follow the rules, and you have to follow the rules when you're not here. And I think that's the hard part, is following the rules.
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to get COVID. It blows my mind when people don't want to follow the rules and they think they're
invincible. But there's a lot of people who don't, or a lot of people who still travel, and a lot of people, and they don't realize what they're bringing back until they've already brought it back. So
right, but no one's brought it back to your set, so you're very lucky.
No, we've been lucky.
One of my old clients got on Bold and the Beautiful, and I was just thinking about it when we were just talking, and she's still on the show, Jennifer Garris.
Yeah, I was just looking at her on camera. She's today.
And when I was looking you up a little bit, she has been on the show since 2006.
Yeah,
I think. Oh my goodness, soap operas are fantastic.
She plays a sister on the show, so she's never going to go away. It's just that sometimes her storyline's there and sometimes it's not. So it just depends, So she's she's.
But it's incredible. It's an incredible thing to for a starting ground for actors, and to have a 9-to-5 job for as many.
And that you said something very interesting, because it used to be a starting ground for actors. It's not anymore. It can't be. I mean, when we first started and we were doing 1 show a day, which to me is just unheard of now because we do 8 shows in 4 days.
Incredible.
But we were doing 1 show a day, and we're a half hour. So that's 35 pages. You had time to work with new actors. You had time to explain the technical sides and all of that. we don't have that now. You got to come in with experience. And so it's really not the jumping off.
Yes,
Now it can be in the sense of smaller roles.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But yes, I don't think any job is a starting ground, and I don't mean to be insulting in any capacity.
No. I understand what you're saying, because it's an amazing learning place, and it's like, I have friends who work in the industry in other capacities. A friend of mine who's a script supervisor, and she was working on a show, and one of our actors was guest starring. She goes, we love daytime actors so much because nothing throws them. We can throw last minute changes at them and they've got it down because they're used to working fast. And that dialogue, it's just a memory muscle, and they're living it every day. So of course, the more you do it, the better your memory is to retain all of that. So
what is the key? What is the secret for that? Because it's not
I think everybody has a different way they do it. I know one of our actors would tell me, and this was years ago, that he would actually record it. And he would record both sides, and he would do it that way. There's another actor who never looks at his lines until the morning of. And because he's working every day, and it's too confusing to work on tomorrow's show before I finish today's show. So he'll finish today's show, go home, read the scripts for the next day, and just read them through and get an idea of what's going on. And then the next morning, he just runs it. And, again, it's because he lives that character every day.
But that is a gift. That is an incredible gift. And a lot of people can't do it. But
yeah, because we had an actor start on our show who hadn't done daytime before, and it was a nightmare for him. At first, we thought it's horrible to say, but I won't say who it is. But it was like, does he have a learning disability? Because he can't remember his lines.
Wow,
and it's like, no, it's just, we're used to doing it, and as time went on, it was fun. It was fun.
Because your body becomes accustomed to what it needs to do. But I feel like almost that all actors should have a good basis from this, even if they're not on a show, to take soap operas and like throw themselves many, many pages just to relax into, the memorization of it.
Well, it's true. And I mean, even for me, reading with the actors, because I do it so much, I have a great memory muscle. And I mean, I can read a scene through once and I've got it down, working with the actors, just because, again, I'm doing it all the time. So it's true.
So
the more you do it.
Mm-hmm. It's so good for your mental health.
Yeah.
Yes, that muscle memory is, and to use it every day. You're so lucky with your job too, but actors, they get to use that, and so many pages after pages, you're working another part of your brain.
Yeah.
It's very, very useful.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Incredible. Okay. So when people back to the Zoom audition, and if they're having a callback, have you experienced that you'd have to put some of the actors in the quote waiting room when the screen comes on and it says
I don't know, because I don't do that. Rachel does that. She's the editor and the manager of the Zoom. I just show up and she tells me what to do and I do it. So I don't have anything to do, but I know that, yes, she does put people in the waiting room, because she'll say to me, okay, we've got so many people in the waiting room. So I know that we do use the waiting room, whatever that is, the virtual waiting room.
So my message to actors is, please take care of yourself in that waiting room and don't just stare at your screen and get all uptight, because it's going to
use it like you're prepping to get ready for your audition. Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the other things too, the technical things that actors need to learn about Zoom is your background. So, to have as neutral a background as you can, because if it's just so busy, I find myself, if an actor is not catching my attention, I'm looking around their background going, oh, look at the books on their bookshelf. Because you're just because you're not keeping me interested with your reading.
Like right now, our backgrounds are not something to use for your Zoom.
No, but that's okay, because we don't have.
We're just hanging out, so it's totally okay. I usually actually do. I do some of my podcasts from my stage where it's that wall, and it looks fantastic.
Well, I know you can also I could put a virtual background up there if I wanted to too, but I don't. But just, a lot of people now are getting savvy and they're putting up the gray screen in the back and all of that kind of stuff.
But they should. Yeah. You should. You have got to be on your game more than ever before. Don't you agree? Don't you feel it's become so much more competitive?
Yeah. And at first, when I was first started the Zoom readings earlier this last year, like last March, it was a learning process for everybody. And it would be, okay, let's stop again. You need to adjust your camera. It's too high, it's too low, you're too far, you're too close, you're too this, that. And people and so we were all just kind of learning together. But as time goes on, you just got to learn. You got to learn the ins and outs, because if you're just sending in a reading, then they're not going to give you the same kind of adjustments.
No, absolutely. What is some advice that you give actors out there? to pursue their career, and then we'll get into how they can connect and
Well,
meet.
I think it's the things we already talked about a little bit, and that is, no, I just lost my train of thought. What are things that
Training.
what
What
are
did we
things?
talk about?
What,
Knowing your Zoom. You were
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, and just, I mean, there's a lot of technical things when it comes to auditions that I think actors have to, learning how to hold your script. Now, when you come in to read for me, you better not be on script, because if you are,
Oh,
you'll never get hired.
okay. That is a really important moment. Let us repeat that, please.
Yes.
So when you're going in for
And I, we tell this to actors, I tell it my students when they read this, that you have to know the material, because we move so quickly, and time is money. And so if an actor comes into a callback, and with my supervising producer, and they're not on script, he's like, why don't they know the lines? He goes, what, it makes them nervous that they're going to get on set and not know their lines, because when you get on set, it's even more stressful. So if you don't know your lines in my office, it makes us really nervous that you're not going to know the lines.
Is this for the first read or just for the callback?
No, for the first, when you come in to read for me, you have got to be off script, or I won't bring you to a callback.
Wow. That is such important information.
Yeah,
I would never know that.
we just move too fast, and
Yeah.
you have to stick to the words. You can't change the dialogue.
Wow.
I don't like what I call gist of acting, which is, well, I kind of got the idea. I got the idea across. No, you did not. You may think you got the idea across, but it's very diluted, and it's not what the writer was telling you to say. And I think actors don't realize that there might be a specific word that you may not like, or actors go, I just changed that word because I like this word better. I'm like, well, guess what? The writers needed that word for something down the road. So don't ever make an assumption that you can change something and it's okay.
I am so on the same page with you, because it's a
just
writer's medium. You have to honor the writer's words first and foremost. You can't change up scripts. I 100% agree with you.
I had a callback once with our executive producer for a role, and this was a big role because otherwise he wouldn't have been involved in the callback. But this actor, I brought him in because he was just so interesting. And he was, but he never, he made up the scene basically as he went along. And the executive producers, our head writer, said, I love this guy, but I'm just worried he'll never say the words I write. And it's true. And how long is it going to take you then to get the scene shot? So it's not worth it, So,
you know what? I understand that. I have coached many an actor, and I'm like, that was great, but I don't see it on this. These are not the words.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think in any medium, you have to honor the text.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went off topic.
Okay.
So Zoom, knowing your lighting, knowing your background, honoring the text. What else about training for actors? What else do you advise?
And I mean, when actors come in the office, I think my biggest thing I will say to actors is control what you can, let go of what you can't. And you can control knowing the material. You can control asking the right questions. You can control being dressed right for the part. You control all those things are in your control. What is not in your control is if you get the job or not. It's not in your control, because I'm going to pick, and you don't know why I'm going to pick what I'm going to pick, but so all you can do is bring that scene to life. Because I'd much rather have an actor come in to read for me who made strong, wrong choices. An actor who comes in to read for me who brings no choices and plays middle of the road because they're so afraid to be wrong. They play middle of the road. And now again, that applies more to a contract role than a day player role. Day player role is pretty finite. You're going to read the scene that you're going to play if you get the role. And so the words are already there on the page. I know what it is I need. For a contract role, it's a little different because we're looking beyond the written word of that scene. We're looking to see what you possess as an actor that we want to invest in for the next 3, 4, 5, however many years you're on the show. So that becomes a little different. But, that becomes about confidence and experience and all of that. Because if I see somebody come in with a strong, wrong choice, I can redirect that choice. But you can't direct no choice.
1,000%. As long as the actors come with a strong point of view, then you know that actor has guts.
Well, and that they worked on something.
Yes. Well, they know what they're doing to create a life of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, at the end of the day, it's always, part of yourself into that material, but absolutely. So you rather not go back to the old world of auditioning. You want to keep it like this, or
I think it'll be a combination of both. I mean, I think for contract roles, it's great because, like I said, I can see people all over the country, and then if we, the producers really like that person, then we can work on getting them out here. But I think until you narrow it down, it's the Zoom works well for that, for the contract roles. For day player roles, I imagine I would probably go back to reading them in office if that day comes. Yeah.
I had a great question in my mind just now, and it just flew out to the other side. But we'll segue into talking about your teaching too, because it is an extension from being a casting director and directing actors. And obviously, that is what casting directors do. You're supposed to help direct them to find, right? So, is there any place specific that you're teaching right now that we want to shout out for you? Or
I teach at ACE I used to teach a lot more. I don't so much anymore, but I do teach a class like once a month at ACE Studios I guess they're in Burbank, but it doesn't matter because it's on Zoom.
Yes.
And like I said, there are great advantages to teaching on Zoom because I don't have to travel. But I also miss that energy in the room, because when you're teaching a group of people, it's like I feed off people, or I can tell that person in the back of the room is they're lost. They're not getting the critiquing or what we're talking about. So that's the hard part about Zoom, is that I can't get all of that energy. So I just have to count on the actors asking questions. I'm really big on actors asking questions.
You are,
especially when I teach class, because it's like, how else are you going to learn if you don't come in with questions?
Well, okay, yes, in classes asking questions. Side note, I can't wait for it to be in person, because the eyes on the screen, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Your eyes melt off. When an actor comes in and is doing the role and they start asking questions, is that going to hinder them? And like if they're going to get an answer that they're not ready for and they haven't worked on, it's gone.
I have two comments for that.
Okay, good.
One is, I always tell actors, if you're looking at material and you have a question, then ask the question ahead of time. I mean, we emailed you the side, so obviously you have our email. Or you can call the office. Anybody who answers the phone could probably answer your question, but if they can't, it'll get back to me, and you'll get or Rachel, and you'll get your question answered. So there's that. If you come in before an actor reads for me, I always ask them, do you have any questions? Because I never want an actor to walk out of my office going, I wonder if I could have asked that. So I always, before they start to read, I say, do you have any questions? It throws some actors off, because they're like, I didn't know I was supposed to have a question. That wasn't part of my homework assignment. So I'm not trying to trick you. And at that point, it really is, do you pronounce the name this way or this way? Do you, it's mostly technical things. However, I have had actors say, well, I looked at the scene and to me, it could have been done this way, A, or it could have been done this way, B. And I say, okay, well, it's B. And I go, oh, well, I worked on A. I'm like, well, then why did you ask the question?
Yes.
Ask the question, be prepared for the answer. So that's my only thing about that. Is if you worked on it both ways, great. Then I'm telling you, go ahead and do it B. But otherwise, just show me what you have, what you worked on, and we'll go from there.
And just say, no, I don't have any questions.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to have a question, but I just don't want you to think you couldn't ask a question.
Well, that's really wonderful, because I think a lot of actors get nervous going in for casting directors. And I think there's that feeling of, you want to please them, you want to get hired, you want to do the best work, and then you also don't want to care what anyone thinks about you. And it's a really hard, it's hard.
You're putting yourself out there. Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there. And you come off like you super, super care. So anyone listening out there, don't be nervous when you go in for Christy Dooley. I have a question.
I know, I have been told I'm intimidating. I don't mean to be, but I think it's because I get so into watching the performance that people think I'm being intimidating, but I'm really not.
I understand. And that's good for people to hear. And this will help them. And this is why I do this as a give back, to get to know you, because I want to break down all the.
Well, I think also my sitting stance in the room is I tend to sit with my arms crossed, because that's just my resting position. And I think people look at that as a judgment, like, oh, she's got her arms crossed. She doesn't like, even my husband will say, your arms are crossed. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. It's just my father did that. And I, for some reason, I do that. It's just how I sit. It's my relaxed, but it's not, it's my listening. It means I'm listening. Doesn't mean I'm judging. It means I'm listening.
But that is so good to know. Yeah. I'm going to sidetrack. When actors come in for you, do they have to is soap operas
SAG-AFTRA? They merge. So we're SAG-AFTRA, but we're still under an AFTRA contract.
I don't even mean paid up. I mean giving actors who aren't in SAG yet new opportunities. So that's not going to hit them.
That's one of the things Daytime can do. If you do 3 extra jobs on Daytime, it makes you SAG eligible. to put you in the SAG. So a lot of people go, I'll be an extra. Or if you do an under 5 on daytime, also that puts you into SAG.
Then that's incredible.
So it's either 3 extra jobs or 1 speaking job.
Okay, let's reiterate that. So if you're trying to get your SAG card and you get into a soap, 3 extra jobs on a soap or 1 under 5.
And under 5, yeah. A line will do it for you.
And where the extra, is that through extra casting or is that?
No, we do it all in-house. It's all here.
How do actors reach out to you?
They reach out to Rachel if they want to do extra work. I don't hire extras, but she does. So they would just reach out to Rachel Oginski, my associate.
What is that email? We're going to put it into the thing. Do you know what it is?
I think it's casting it. I'm going to text her right now because I don't want to give out the wrong one. I don't want to give out her email.
What's her full name? Rachel?
Yeah. Rachel Oginski.
Rachel Oginski. You guys
Oginsky.
ONGI. What? I said it wrong.
Oginski. I have to spell it. Oginsky. Rachel Rose. People know her as Rachel Rose. Everybody knows Rachel Rose.
This is huge information for whoever is listening because I get calls all the time. COVID, I can't get my SAG card and, all this kind of stuff, but I'm giving you.
But now let me tell you, that wasn't a perfect world. We haven't hired an extra since we've been back.
Okay.
We're not going to use extras until things clear up because, again, why would we put those bodies on set? If we have to have an extra, we'll use one of our makeup people or our COVID supervisor because he's always on stage. We're going to use somebody who's already cleared. We're not going to bring on a stranger who we've got to test. Because this is the other thing that for me, it's like I had a role next week coming up and it's like, you've got to have them cast by this date because they have to be tested this far in advance. It's like, oh my God. So that has changed things a little bit because we have to, everybody has to be tested.
Yeah, well, you got to play it safe. But I'm just saying for getting your SAG card in the future, just hearing that other opportunity is going to get people's minds spinning. And I think that's incredible.
Right.
So don't be nervous when you go in with Christy. She sits folded.
Okay, this is the other thing about nerves. Because you can't tell somebody not to be nervous. So what I say is, because I used to play the piano. I haven't played in a long time, but I used to do concerts. And all my nerves, when I get nervous, go into my hands, which is not a great thing for you're playing the piano. Yeah. So you have to find other ways to redirect your nerves. And that's part of why I have actors stand when they come in to read for me, because it gives your nerves someplace to go. Because I have found when actors sit in a chair, everything sinks into that chair and, everything's gone. And so by standing, again, use your nerves in a positive way as opposed to a crippling way. Because it can work for you. It can give you energy. It can give you all, you just have to look at it that way. So I'm not saying don't be nervous, just don't let it cripple you. Yeah.
Yes. Find the way to use your nerves, of course. That's what I meant, obviously, because you can't. And the minute you say to somebody, don't be nervous, what's going to happen? Of course that's going to happen.
Yeah. Like, don't think of elephants. Okay.
But my point was being that when they come in the room with you and they see you folding your arms, it means you're listening and you're attentive.
I'm listening.
Yes. And
but that's only if I'm not reading with them. I mean, if I'm reading with them, I'm going to be reading with them. But if I'm just watching a scene, that would be, okay, this is the casting. It's just casting at bbmail.tv.
bbmail.tv. We will put that in when this podcast comes out.
Yeah, that's the generic one.
Okay.
So Rachel gets that one.
Okay, that's amazing. And let me ask you, so if they were doing the extra to Rachel, would they be thrown into the circle of the under 5s?
Doing extra work does not hurt you from doing under 5s, but I cast anything that speaks. So it would still have to come to me, still have to go through me. But not to say Rachel doesn't suggest people for under 5s. Of course she does. She can, anybody she wants, she can suggest to me. And I read under 5s, and I read people over and over again. And I've had people say to me, why do you keep reading me for an under 5? Why can't you just hire me? Why do I have to keep coming in and read? I said, well, 2 things. First of all, because every under 5 is different, has a different, and the fewer the lines, the harder the role. And 2, don't be offended, because if I keep bringing you in, I'm looking for something for you. I just haven't found the right thing yet. So if I don't think you're good, I'm not going to bring you in anymore. It's not just for fun. So if you keep getting called in, it's because I want to use you. I just haven't found anything. And it has come down to that for me in the past with under 5s. Well, I'll read like 8 people, let's say, for an under 5, which is kind of a lot, I guess. Yeah. And it comes down to like 2 people. And I'm like, I can't decide between these 2 people. And I'll go, you know what? This person's read for me 4 times. This person's only read for me twice. So it's their turn. You know,
Oh,
it can come down to that. I try to be fair if they're both right for the role.
it must be hard sometimes when you really like 2 or 3 actors and for solid reasons to make that final decision.
And that's one of the reasons why I like callbacks is because I want to be able to go, yeah, I want them to see this. And, you know, instead of me just hiring them, I want to, you know, I want to be able to show them different ways a role can be done. Now, if it's a really straightforward role, I'll go to our supervisor and producer and say, this is who I want to use. Are you fine with this? Because there's no sense in doing callbacks. I've brought him one person for a callback before. This is who you're getting, but I just want you to see them. And he likes that because it helps him he wants to meet the actor before they hit stage, because that way he sees what he's going to get in the scene. And no surprises. So even if I'm only bringing him one person, it's like, okay, now I see what we're going to get. Do we need to make any adjustments? Okay, whatever. And we're good to go. So we've been doing it a long time. We're a pretty well-oiled machine.
It seems like it. It seems like it. Very many, many years. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful to find what your passion and your purpose to help actors. What could be better?
Yeah. And even when you know, I have a production company and a producing partner, and we made a movie a few years ago, and even, you know, obviously I was involved in the casting. But it was still, even though it was a film instead of daytime, it was still a very similar process as far as reading the actors and all of that. It was just a different pool of actors, you know. But other than that, it's still,
it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
You gotta show up. You have to be prepared. You have to have a strong opening moment, an arc in your scene, and a closing moment.
I mean, the difference with film is that you can shoot a scene line by line if you have to, because you're moving so much slower. You can't do that in daytime. You got it. So, you know, everything's going to show.
Everything's going to show. Before we close out, just give me 3 pieces of positive advice to actors. Just give me 3 things that come to your mind. So as they pursue their career and keep their dreams going.
Gosh, different than what I've already said.
Maybe.
I don't know. Just if you're not enjoying it anymore, don't do it, first of all, because it's a hard enough business as it is. So you've got to have joy in doing what you're doing. And I just, I don't know. I mean, just, I can't think of any other positive things other than what I've said.
Okay, that's fine. But maybe get to really know yourself inside and out.
Well, yes. I mean, that's the confidence in coming in. And that's what I said earlier with not giving your power away when you come in to read. You know, show me what you can do. Show me that you're the expert at the job, you know, not me, that I'm looking to see what it is you do with it. You know, so it's just, you know, not being afraid to really use yourself in the scene too, I guess.
And believe in yourself. Christy,
listen. You know, listen, obviously, is the number one thing they always tell you. Just listen. And I give that comment a lot with students. I'll say, you know, you're a really good listener, because it's just, okay, here's something. Do your homework. You know, do your homework on, if it's a show you don't know, you've never read for before, do your homework on that show, of their style. And even with daytime, there's only 4 of us, but we're all very different from each other. The energy is different. So even if you look up that to see what kind of energy it is, so that you just, you know, get yourself armed with as much information as you can so that you are the expert. And then once you've done all that, let it go. And when you walk into that office to read, let it go. And now let's just play, because that's what brings joy for me, is watching an actor who's let go. And now we can play, we can let the words jump off the page. And the most exciting thing for me to find in an actor in a reading is spontaneity. Is all of a sudden it's that unexpected thing, because they're listening and they're in the moment and they're not anticipating what they're going to say next, but they're just really, you know, it's a back and forth. So
it's so true. And the only way you can be in the moment is doing all the homework and letting it go. So
you can let it go, because a cold reading is just not going to do it. I don't care how good a cold reader you think you are. You're going to miss all the nuances.
Oh, 1000%. That's another story. You got to do the work. You got to do the process.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out.
You're welcome.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
And be safe.
You too.
Great success.
Thank you.
And everybody out there, stay courteously aggressive and go for your dreams.
Exactly.
Let's turn it off.